It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. Brought to you by the Up On Game Presents Network. It's your boy, Jimmy J. I'm here with my guys, Jake Galley and Stat Matt Robinson. Y'all, we've been talking about the NFL for a long time. And Jake, it was even you, 2 pods ago when we introduced the NBA a little bit. You're like, man, I'm so happy to be talking NBA content again. And then we put it on hold for a whole week. Talked about the NFL because we knew we had this guest lined up, and we were like, we got to save the rest of the NBA talk for our guy, Martin Soaries, the founder and runner of Basketball Society over there. Follow them on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. They call him the basketball guru, man. And if you know about his meditation, you know about his basketball paintings behind him, you know that it's all true. But Martin, thanks for coming on the pod, man. Thanks for sharing the facts. You know we always love having you on.
All facts, bro. Appreciate you guys having me on. Great to see you guys again. You guys are great at what you do. I'm always tapped in, so I appreciate you guys for having me on again.
Of course. We said it when we left in June. We was like, Martin's coming back. We used Martin as our eye for basketball because we know that's exactly what he has. So, I mean, let's just get right into it. We're going to introduce a new segment with you, too. We're going to call it Time to Face the Facts. And I got some stats. We got some stats about some players, some teams in the NBA. And based on those facts, what do we have to come to? What conclusion do we have to come to about this team or this person? And the first one, might as well start it with a bang. Might as well get Jake and Matt's trauma just out the way because this is going to be forever a polarizing figure in the NBA. He just is. Let's just face that fact. It's Ben Simmons right now. Right now, Ben Simmons on the season has a whopping 17 points, and even more hilariously or tragically, whichever side you look at it, he's got 14 fouls on the season, only 3 less fouls than he does points in a 4-game regular season so far. So Martin, before I even let Stat Matt go off, because you can't really see our script, but this one has the most supporting details in it. This one has the most damage done to it. So before he goes off, man, what it's time to face facts about Ben Simmons. And what is that? What's going on?
To me, the fact is that he's learning to play basketball again, kind of from what I've been seeing. From what I've watched, he's clearly learning to be himself again. I mean, it took him all this time just to get back to being on the floor. Now he's on the floor. I didn't expect him to start going for 20, 10, and 10 right away. I don't know if that's going to be his ultimate ceiling. People feel like he can be that kind of player again. But I like what he does for Brooklyn. From what I've seen, even though the numbers don't look great and aren't in his favor, what he does for them just as a utility player, as a point guard, which is really why Kyrie, I think, really loved playing with James Harden when he was there, because he could be more of the point guard. What he does defensively, we know. But from what I've seen, the facts are that you got to give him a little more time. I'm giving him at least another month or 2 before I can make a solid conclusion on Ben Simmons. So the fact is that he hasn't played all this time, and now he's playing. I applaud him for that. He's back out there. That's what everyone wanted. He's out there. Now give him time to try and get into some kind of rhythm.
Are you giving applauses to every single NBA player? Because that's an accomplishment that every single NBA player is doing.
Oh, here he's unlocked. He's unlocked already. He's unlocked already. He's unlocked already. Didn't even let Martin finish the point. But Martin, to your point, and you're at the very least, him learning how to play basketball again has to be true. Just from the standpoint of learning how to run with 5-man lineups, how to play organized basketball in sets again. Like you can run open gyms in the summer to get your legs back, but he hasn't played organized NBA basketball in over a season. Like that takes some adjustment to get back to. And you could just see it in some of the numbers. Averaged 11.6 field goal attempts per game in the regular season. As a Sixer, he's averaging through 4 games, 4 attempts. Like that, you know what I mean? And that's
like, yeah, I'm not taking that as like he's learning how to get back out there. I mean, I don't know.
like that's low even for Ben Simmons, y'all. Like that's not like comically low anymore. That is something is different about what he's doing low. Like that's too low. That's not he's scared to shoot the basketball. That's something else to that.
What I think is, and granted, you know what, it's easy to look back and say what I'm about to say. So I want to first give Sean Marks almost a little bit of a pass in terms of the job he did going into this season as GM, because he had no clue. I think it was very out of his hands what this roster was going to look like. Kyrie and KD all of a sudden said, you know what, maybe it's not so bad here in Brooklyn. So I think going into the season, people had a more optimistic view about the team because, you know, out of all possible outcomes, this is the result where they have the most talent. Watching the team, though, like it is so brutally apparent that they are going to struggle to find Ben Simmons good looks because of roster construction. The roster, or the lineup, I should say, the 5-man grouping that they've ran out there the most often has been KD, Kyrie, Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons, and Claxton at the 5. And that is by far their most common lineup, and it has a minus 30 net rating. It's the worst net rating of any 5-man lineup with a minimum of like 25 minutes played. So, I know why the roster isn't prepared for Ben Simmons. It's because they had other things going on. But with Deron Payne on the bench, you have Nicholas Claxton. Those are 2 true 5s who aren't floor spacers. And then you have Ben Simmons running around there at the 4. It just is like not – I don't know how we sit here in 2022, almost 2023, and don't know that putting Ben Simmons out there with a non-floor spacing big
in the half court. In the half court. Now, if the Nets were a Celtics level defense and created all these turnovers and missed shots and transition and getting out, that lineup would be no problem because Nick Claxton, while a true 5, is a rim running 5, a fast, speedy 5 who can get down the floor with Ben Simmons. But if you're not stopping anybody and you're running all of this in a half court, yeah, it's yucky. Like, yes, it's yucky. Like that. When you said that lineup to me, I was like, yuck. Because in the half court, no, it's not going to work. Are you ready? Stat Matt? We're done.
We're done. Basically, he could improve because he is just a special talent. That's what he was. He still has that ability if he's able to find it again. But I really think he's scared to play offense. That's my hypothesis. I think everything about his game, he from a scoring perspective, he's scared of on offense. He's still getting like decent assist numbers, 7 assists per game. And he's turned the ball over more than usual. I think that is where like Russ plays into it as well. But 4 field goal attempts is laughably horrible. And I think he's afraid of the spotlight on him, and he's terrified of showing his biggest flaw, which is.
But that's not
offensive
new.
Scoring. No. But in the regular season with the Sixers, there wasn't a huge spotlight on him. Then in the playoffs, there became one, and in the playoffs with the Sixers, his field goal attempts fell every year. From his first year, he got clowned for having that 1-point game against Boston as a rookie. And then next year, his field goal attempts fell from we averaged 12 in the regular season that year, fell to 9 in the playoffs. And then in the last year with the Sixers against the Wizards and Atlanta, he averaged 7.9 field goal attempts, which was well below his average of 11 that year. And everyone says jump shot. I've always been like the free throw. He's shooting 3 of 7 from the free throw line. He's afraid to play offense because when he drives to the hole, he'll get fouled. And then everyone's going to watch him miss free throws. And I think he knows that it's a mental block for him, and he hasn't been able to overcome it yet. And I think he's fouling too much on defense because he's trying to overcompensate for something he sees that's lacking.
And to be honest, those are all fair points. I say they're not new points, but they're still fair when you have.
I think they are new because Simmons was never a great scorer in Philly, but he still averaged like 15 points per game.
Yeah,
That's he's also like a 15 point per game player is a good player, like from a scoring perspective.
He's also playing with Kyrie and KD now. Like, let's remember that.
Who just dropped.
Yeah, but he played with Embiid and Jimmy Butler. Like, that's not the same.
It's not because KD and Kyrie just dropped 37 apiece. If I got two brothers dropping 37 apiece, I got no will to score. Like, they got it. They got it. Like, you know what I mean?
It's the same in terms of he's played with two other stars, but when I say KD, I'm talking about those guys are the scorers. Like, they are offensive players, offensive scoring juggernauts. They are going to shoot and they have to shoot. So I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying if you put yourself in his position, he's already a non-shooting point guard type of player, and he's playing with two players who have to shoot and who are going to. That's a disadvantage on his part.
My counter is that if he doubled his field goal attempts, he'd still have less than Nick Claxton.
Yeah, no, I mean, if he takes 10 shots, there's no guarantee that he's going to score at least 15 because we don't know what those shots are going to be. He hasn't shown to be that kind of player yet. But if he gets to at least double figure shot attempts, whatever that does look like, again, they have a lot to figure out. But he's not that far off. Like is I guess my point. Yeah. It's not going to take that much to get from 4 shots a game is a combination of him being scared and also the fact that he already doesn't 11 shots a game isn't a lot either for a player who's supposed to be elite. Like he's not elite offensively, but a top tier player taking 11 shots a game like that's pathetic.
Right. And let's also not forget the 14 fouls in this equation too. Like that also takes you off the floor being in foul trouble a whole lot. And he's already not a volume shooter. So when he comes back in for those 5 to 7 minute spurts before he gets in foul trouble again, his thought isn't score. So yeah, it probably is going to, reduce his field goal attempts if he's not even seeing long minutes, especially if he's fouling out with 7-8 minutes left to go in basketball games, which he's doing, which is also like the laughable part.
Yeah,
is he's constantly finding himself in these situations.
Well, and that to me is like the biggest indicator that he is
like Ja baited. How much time was on the clock when Ja baited him into that 6th foul? Like just under 4 or something like that.
I would have to go back and check. It was late in the game.
I don't know if it was like waning seconds in the game like that. But that's just my point. So Martin, before we move on, that's your take, your stance is that it's adjustment period for Ben Simmons and not, an indication of this is what the Nets got. This is what the Nets are stuck with.
No, I need to give it some more time. I mean, I'm still looking at what Kyrie is doing to affect winning. I'm still I like Royce O'Neal. I like that Joe Harris is back out there. Like I kind of like what I'm seeing in terms of how they're playing. They seem to not be trying to rely on Durant and Irving all day, every minute of the game. They seem to be trying to do that. So I like that. But yeah, I need to give it some more time. It's sad because Ben Simmons would need to be like a Rondo type of leader mentality wise to actually have the kind of impact on the team that fans really want him to have if they feel like that he can help them turn things around. But that hasn't proven to be him yet. But I think we could still give him time to show he can make an impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think one of the most important parts is he's got to have a team and a fan base that embraces him and allows him to come along at his pace because he hasn't had that in a very, very long time, for better or for worse. Go ahead.
Well, Jake, can I just say before we move on, an inevitable Jake patting himself on the back here. I think it may have been right after the trade or right before the Ben Simmons trade last year where I got laughed at for saying Ben Simmons should become a Draymond Green type screener, roller, facilitator, and that is his optimal.
I don't know who
in the NBA.
I don't know who laughed at because if he embraced
got a mirror, you got a mirror. You don't know who laughed at? Yes, you did.
No, why would I laugh at you?
Check the tape.
I would check the tape because why would I laugh at you for that? Why would I laugh at you for that?
Because at the time it was outlandish for me to say.
I don't know because
the thing that's
exactly the role that the Nets need him to be.
More. He just isn't.
Yeah, I think
but that's true. So why try
it happen? Like he was in Philadelphia. He was a 3rd-team All-NBA player. he had games where he'd score 30 points, like, and Draymond had like 1 year where he randomly shot 40% from three as kind of a fluke year from him shooting perspective, and but Ben Simmons is a consistent 15-point per game player for 3 years. And that's something Draymond never was.
Here's why I think I left you.
Isn't that anymore? And
here's why I think I laughed.
And he's still young.
Here's why I think I laughed at you, Jake. Because and that's probably why of where Ben Simmons was in his career, that now we hope for him to be a Draymond level facilitator, is probably the gap and the drop is probably what I laughed at. Like, I can't believe that's what Ben Simmons' career, from one point comparing him to names like LeBron to now hoping that he becomes a Draymond level facilitating screener. That is where I found the brevity.
Draymond is a Hall of Famer and a massive part of a dynasty. So you could do worse, is what I'm saying.
I hear you. All right, let's move on. The second thing we have to face facts about is something is brewing over there in Cleveland, because the Cavs, man, look, right now they currently hold the NBA's best net rating at plus 13.28. For comparison, last year they finished with a net rating of plus 2.3, which was still playing good. Still got them into a playoff scenario, but this year adding Donovan Mitchell and pieces, it's got them off to a different kind of start. So Martin, again, before we get into the whole facts of the things, what does that tell you? We got to face facts about what about Cleveland?
That Cleveland is a real team in the East. Like, we should have known they were going to be once they got Donovan Mitchell. He's one of the special ones, and we have a lot of them. Like, the league is ridiculous right now with talent, but he's one of the many that are considered, in my opinion, just flat out a special talent. He gets 30. He impacts winning. He really does have kind of like that Dwayne Wade type of impact, influence, presence on the floor. Not like comparing their games, but just like, again, just that kind of presence. I love how he's with guys like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. And I mean, that's a real team. So I had talked about it when they made the move. Like, Cleveland they remind me of kind of like Chicago and maybe even like Atlanta, but there's a few teams that are trying to get into the top tier that are like right there. Like, I feel like Chicago, Atlanta, the Knicks are trying to be solid second tier right now. I think they're fighting to be in that second tier, but you have,
fighting.
They're trying to be legit second tier. Cause I think the second tier of the East, you have some good teams, but you don't think of them as like real contenders for the East or for the whole thing. And I just think what you're seeing early on, like Cleveland with a player like Donovan Mitchell, when you have a talent like Donovan Mitchell, this is what I said. Now they can compete against almost anybody. I mean, they can compete against Milwaukee. They can compete against Miami. They can compete against, like, they can at least compete. And that, I mean, that says a lot. They were competing last year, but it was like, they're young and they're fun and we kind of like them. No, now you have to take them seriously because they have Donovan Mitchell. He has won. Listen, he hasn't been to the promised land, but he's won playoff games. He's he's been in the atmosphere more than these young guys. So I take them seriously. I think you have to.
This was, what do they call this in nature? A symbiotic relationship where one party, like, they just benefit each other by coming together. And when Donovan Mitchell came to the Cavs, like, what was the one thing, especially on this podcast, that we were saying about the Cavs is the reason they dropped off last year? They're 4th, 5th in the East all season, and then it comes down to make a playoff run, and now they're fighting to stay in the playoff play-in scenario. And that's because it's all young guys trying to run that ship over there. Guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro, like, these are your leaders. These are your best players on your team. So they go and get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who's maintained a best record in the NBA twice, who's been a number 1 seed going into the playoffs. Like, he's done that before. He can bring that. And then when Donovan Mitchell went to the Cavs, I'm like, wow, he finally has team defense. Not one player who everyone tries to tell me plays great defense. He's got a team of fast, hungry, tenacious players who play great team defense. 2nd in points allowed, 1st in total rebounding. They stop your possession, they get it back to themselves, and they keep going. So, like, that was like what, like, I was like, I was never big on Donovan Mitchell being the number one player on a legit title contending team. Like that was just, it was tough for me to see. He's going to need a Robin to his Batman at all times. He didn't have it in Utah. And then he went to Cleveland and I was like, like not bet him to win the title, but
Hooper,
you surrounded with all that scoring, all that scoring, all that high motor around him. Interesting. It made me think different about what Donovan Mitchell could do with a team, especially a team who already had momentum in the East last year without him.
Yeah, and that's the fact I'm facing down right now, because you know how I've always said Donovan Mitchell cannot be the number one guy on a championship level team. The fact that I am faced with,
I said it too.
Okay, so then the fact that we are faced with is that may not be the case anymore. Like
it's like I'm so close to believing that. Like I'm so close to believing that.
Jacob, but I think we all made a big flaw in our assessment of Mitchell. But I'll let Jacob first.
Listen. I think that is still true, but like Jimmy, to your point, with the kind of team he has right now, we get to really see what he can do, what his potential is. This team better fits him, gives him a better chance at making real noise than any group he had in Utah by far. We obviously, but look, we still have to see it. I mean, I said the names, but like, look, Donovan Mitchell is still a smaller guard. He's not one of the unicorns. So like if he goes up against a Giannis, a Tatum, now he has to take that head-to-head matchup in the East. Like there are monsters on both sides. The Warriors are over there and the Clippers and stuff, but on the East you got real monsters. Even DeMar DeRozan, like you're gonna have to take him. There are still hitters over here. So I think it's a good opportunity to see for him to even show us like where he's at on the totem pole, because I could see him going blow for blow with Tatum. I could see him giving Giannis issues. I can see him.
But Martin, we've seen it. We've seen the 45-point barrages against the Clippers. Playoffs. You know what I mean? And the playoffs against the Nuggets in the playoffs. Yeah, like we've seen it against the top dogs in the playoffs. Well, but like to your point, like I think like it's gonna seem more impactful. He would drop 45 against the Nuggets and they wouldn't win. Like this is you know what I mean? Like that's hard. That's hard to do.
I also Mitchell's biggest kind of like reason why I think I disrespect him is I'd forgotten how young he was. He's 26 years old. Yeah. He's because he was in the playoffs with a good Utah team from his rookie year till he got traded. Like it made like Damian Lillard from his first year through age 25 year season averaged 22 points per game for his career. And then he broke out and became this dominant scorer, a 30-point per game guy, an MVP candidate, like that level of player. And we all forgot that when you have someone like Mitchell, he can still take a leap. Now, 3 games in, it's too early to say if he took the leap. But I feel like without thinking about it, wrote off the possibility of like, oh no, this is what Donovan Mitchell is. We know what he is. That's what he's going to continue to be. And we really like it. But no, like he could break out and become a 30-point per game, top 10 player, like undisputed in the league. Yeah. And none of us really
we know another player.
Thought about that.
Yeah, we know another player who broke out at 26 in the Eastern Conference, and now that man is dominant. A guy like Giannis breaks out at that age. Like it's not. You're absolutely right, Matt. Like I think you're absolutely right in saying that.
I think the biggest thing for me, and looking at his stats, like blow you away type stats, 33 point, and again, microscopic sample size, 3 games, but he's got 99 points total in those 3 games, 33.3 on average, 5.3 rebounds. And then the really big one without Garland's only played 1 game so far this year. So that will change how they look a little bit, but 7 assists on average with 5.3 rebounds. And then the biggest one, 42.
I think that goes up. I think that goes up when Garland comes back.
Well, you think really? So you believe they'll keep him as the primary ball handler?
But I just like the 1-2. Darius Garland can play off the ball really well. He can play on the ball really well. But the having the Donovan Mitchell kind of as like a 2-wing high at the top of the key, like I like the combination of Garland and Mitchell.
They've got so the point is like they've got options there with guards, and they're only going to get stronger. That'll only help. The one thing that I do have to be a little bit of a naysayer here is I don't think Mitchell is clicking yet with the two bigs in Allen and Mobley. When you look at on-off splits, again, really, really small sample size. So not putting too much into this and not saying this can't change, but they are almost 29 points better with Allen off the court than on the court, and Mobley is minus 48.5 in terms of on-off. So like that sample size, I have to look at their games. They must have gotten blown out with one of them on the court.
You know that also, a lot of things to me about Donovan Mitchell is like damaged by Rudy, and I got to learn how to trust bigs who can get it done on the offensive end now.
And that's
like
the thing.
You
look at the two reserve bigs that they have coming in Kevin Love and Dean Wade, two sharp shooting forwards who space the floor. And those guys have great on-off splits. They're both shooting over 50% from three. So it looks right now like Donovan Mitchell's a little more comfortable with the reserves, with the stretchier lineup. It'll be interesting to see how this team morphs as they get healthy and get together.
Yeah, I think there's a very, very high ceiling for the Cavs. Now, anyone looking for them to make an Eastern Conference Finals run? Like maybe not yet, but they have a chance to build around a young core the way that like Boston built around a young core,
which includes Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, yes, which is the forefront of that.
It's a great luxury to have. The Eagles had it with AJ Brown. They added a guy that they can build around for years to come with a 24-year-old, and the Cavs did it with a 26-year-old.
Yeah, building something. Martin, what's your ceiling for the Cavs this year? What do you think their high hopes are?
I feel like the way the East is set up, matchups are going to be everything in the playoffs. I think we're going to get some really dope matchups in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And depending on how things shake out, I'm not putting it past Cleveland to do conference semifinals. If it's the right matchup, maybe they can get to conference finals. But I mean, I'm looking at Boston and Milwaukee as my top two teams in the East. I still respect Miami. I got to see what they're doing, but I just feel like they might take a step back. They might be a little more vulnerable. Another team might be able to creep into that like top three, not in terms of standings, but in terms of who's actually the best, most elite teams in the East. I think that could be a fight for who's in there. And I think Cleveland would be one of my candidates to do that. So I'm saying either conference semifinals, maybe conference finals if they have the right matchup.
Yeah, Cleveland to me is right outside the top four holding a wet floor sign because they go catch someone slipping. Like the team that slips is like Cleveland. Don't get caught slipping because that's what Cleveland gonna get you. Like that's the team that's gonna jump you in the standings if a team slips. All right, the last one, and it's gonna hurt my two co-hosts here, Martin. This one probably isn't gonna be the best one that they talked about. But Joel Embiid is also someone who's coming out struggling just a little bit through 4 games this season. He's tied for first in lost ball turnovers and tied for 4th most field goals attempts blocked this season, which coming from inside of Philadelphia are probably two of the stats that Sixers fans want to see the least of Joel Embiid is turnovers lost and shots getting blocked. So before I let them go off, because I know they're ready to go off again, Martin, face facts about Embiid. What's that telling you? What's going on with the big man? That's tough. It's tough.
I think that the fact is, from what I've seen early on, James Harden seems to be back into an offensive rhythm, right? Looking for his shots, looking for his. And I think that's what we're looking at is that now Harden feels like he's back to being best player on the team. And I think they have a good understanding of the fact. I mean, who knows if it'll ever become a thing, but I think they have a good understanding of like Joel is really the best player, but James, we need you to act like you're the best player. And we kind of need that to coexist at the best level, as best we can. But I think James at his best, one of the ways he's at his best is in the pick and roll, but at his best, you just give him space and you just say, yo, go cook. Just go do it, and he'll, even when he does that, he'll get guys involved and he can run offense. But that kind of style isn't great for a player like Joel Embiid, where you're either playing through Embiid, like you go do it, And then what is James Harden doing? Acting like he's just facing the floor, but he's not going to do that. So I think they're just I think they are just having to figure that out now because James is failing himself again, and they want to go through Embiid. They want to keep treating him like what he is, the foundation. But it's like we also need James to be confident and feel himself and get himself going. So having both of those be true is going to be a process, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, pun intended, huh? Pun intended.
Yeah. I think you've got a pretty good based on how I interpret. I think you're right on the nail there, Martin, in the sense that Joel seems to be content when James Harden is cooking, which has been often this year, to just kind of be there. Like, if you need me, I'm here. If you need me to post up and go one-on-one, like, just let me know. But and also, I also want to pump the brakes a little bit for everyone who is upset at his maybe effort level and his conditioning level or how he's looked. He currently has a 0.5 box plus minus, meaning as far as the stats go, he's currently contributing through the 4 games that they've played 0.5 more points per 100 possession than the league average player would. So I think it is very much so, him getting back into shape, him getting into the swing of things. Don't forget, through 4 games last year, he was averaging 19.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists on 44% field goal shooting. Also with a 0.5 plus minus in those 4 games. So, like, look, he's going to turn it around, but it is a little interesting. Can Joel and Harden both be at the top of their games at the same time? I don't know.
Just one pick. Why not? Why don't they let him roll 90% of the game?
I just want to say,
oh my God, I can't believe it.
Oh God,
Jake, your box plus minus is misleading. When last year he was 9.2, so it shows.
No. Through 4 games was
no. But he's like
he's
under. Embiid's supposed to be the best player in basketball or one of them, and he's not performing like that. And I have no worries at all about it because he's going to get it together because he's Joel Embiid. I just think in the beginning of seasons, he's a little rusty from the off season, and it takes him about maybe 10 games to play off that rust and get back into game mode, not making little silly turnovers, remembering what a real double team's gonna be, and that kind of, and it's basketball's a sport where you can do that fine. It takes you 10 games to get in a rhythm when you're an all-time great center. You're gonna be fine the last 70 games.
And here's why that's true, Matt, is because why does it take Embiid so long or take him a couple of games to get used to it? Because his offseason isn't spent with running 5s or doing drills. His offseason is spent a lot of times resting and rehabbing because this man is going through the playoffs battered and bruised pretty much every season. It's a nasty cycle, but it takes a long time through the off season to let your body rest and heal before you're even ready to get back into those basketball type plays. And we've seen other players come into the season out of shape now, haven't we? And they've been fine through the season. So that's why I'm not worried there. What I am worried about, and Jake, you said it, is if James Harden and Embiid can be at their best at the same time on the floor. Because I don't want to give anybody PTSD, but when Joel Embiid was with Ben Simmons, they both were at their best when the other person was off the floor. I
categorically disagree with that statement. I'm not going to get into it. Because every stat that shows up is that when Embiid and Simmons were on the floor together, they were the best lineup in basketball.
Best 5-man lineup?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about a whole 5-man lineup.
But that's what basketball is.
But I hear you, and that's why you categorically disagree with me because I'm
not playing 2-on-2.
I hear you. You know what I mean? And you ain't moving the goalpost. Like he made it so we're both right at the same time. That's not what I'm talking about. I get what you're saying, but in what we're discussing individually with the 2 best players on your team, we've seen historically that they've been better individually, I will say, when the other person has been off the floor. And I don't want that to be the scenario for James Harden and Embiid. And I think a lot of it is figuring out both Doc Rivers, Embiid, Harden, the whole team about how that's going to happen. but that doesn't mean the ball doesn't run through Embiid. So you're going to take your growing pains with it. He still has a wildly high usage rate, about like 51%, which is like when you're adjusting and the ball's still going to him, you're going to get turnovers. You know what I mean? You're not going to be in the right position to take a shot. It's going to get tipped. It's going to get blocked. Like that. Those kind of little growing pains while you're figuring out the offense are probably going to happen. Like, to me, all that correlates. So I'm where you guys are, where I'm not worried about Embiid is going to get it together, but at least by himself. But I'm worried about, can him and Harden be the best, be their apex, basketball playing when they're both on the floor? Like,
I think that's fair, but I don't think the worry should be directed at Harden and Embiid. It should be directed at Doc Rivers, because the
worry never came off of Doc Rivers.
No, I'm not confident. No, because
it's a given.
I don't think, I absolutely believe that Embiid and Harden can play great together with them both playing great. I absolutely have no clue if Doc Rivers can figure out how to do that. And I don't think it's a difficult task to do.
That's absolutely fair. I have seen him. We make fun of the lineups, but I think one of the most interesting lineups he puts in is the Harden, Daniel House, George Niang, Matisse Thybulle, and I'm missing one. And I don't think it's Shea because there's too many guards on the floor. Maybe Paul Reed or
Did you say Melton?
Oh, no. Yep. Melton. That's who it is. That lineup, that's basically like, everyone get out the way, let James Harden score. That is a funny lineup to me because it's getting him his buckets.
The Rockets went to the Western Conference Finals with that lineup.
I hear you, dog. Last thing before we go on. Martin, you had a question. I don't think it was addressed enough. Why are they not running more high screener rolls? This could be the deadliest screen and roll combination in the league if you just ran it every single time down the floor. If you literally just put someone in a high screen and roll and with Harden and Embiid, space the floor with 3 other shooters out, like, it really could just be the best thing. I truly think if they both learn how to master it, there's the space they both need. Like, just give it to them.
What's ironic is Embiid actually does, I'm looking on NBA.com stats, this year is the number one in terms of possessions spent or amount of times in a game, amount of possessions in a game, being the pick and roll man, the big.
Okay.
He has the number one, the most possessions, and his points per play is about 1.2, which is good for like third in the league. But Harden is way down there as a pick and roll ball handler, meaning they're running a decent
Harden and Embiid.
Exactly. There's a lot of I'll actually have to dig into these stats. Harden has the same exact amount of possessions in terms of as Embiid does in terms of pick and roll. So maybe they do run a little bit of pick and roll, but
I mean, they have to be doing it some together, but that tells me majority of the time he's running it with somebody else, and Embiid is running it with somebody else, which is weird.
Based on points per play, it looks like my immediate takeaway is Joel is profiting a little bit more off of the pick and roll than Harden is, which is interesting. And I don't have the assist numbers from these plays here, and that could ultimately be where points per play is derived from.
In the weeds.
Yeah.
I'll make this last point about Philly and Harden and Embiid. I won't get too sciencey here or anything, but and I'm not a scientist, so I don't know how I could do that, but
you could try.
There's I could try. Harden and Embiid, and this is, I mean, honestly, forget science. This is very fundamental. This is as simple as it gets when it comes to basketball. Speed and movement. I think I talked to you guys about this before. I think I brought this up on here before about foot speed.
Physics.
Talking about the Warriors. We were talking. I think we were talking about. I talk about this all the time with the Warriors. When you watch, basketball is a running game. Like, it takes running and movement. Harden and Embiid are too slow players. Like, you know what I mean? They're not like so, and I have to apologize to you guys, especially Jake and Matt, because when I was talking about the Eastern Conference and my tiers, I didn't mention Philly, as I tend to always forget at least one team, and I do have Philly as a top tier team. Just so you.
I didn't think that was an accident. I mean, that's not even a throw shade. That's not even a throw shade. Not
at all. It was a mistake on my part. Philly just left my mind for some reason, and maybe because I knew we were going to the next segment, so I just left them out. But I do have Philly as a top tier team. But the fact that you have your two best players are like these slow guys who work well. Now that might work well in the playoffs when it slows down in the half court. Like I think that really helps them. That's what makes them really tough. It's going to make them really tough against people, especially if Harden is confident and in rhythm. But if Philly goes up against a team like Cleveland in the playoffs, they're vulnerable because Donovan Mitchell might wear James Harden out.
Yeah, just run him all over the floor.
He's too hungry and he's too that. He might wear him out. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen might just run Joel Embiid to death. You know what I'm saying? So like, listen, Harden and Embiid is wonderful and beautiful, but the one thing when I watch the Sixers and when I think about championship teams of late, mainly the Warriors, of course, ball movement, player movement, all the things that people say they know are important, you don't really see, not yet. Like you kind of see it in spurts when they can really get it going side to side. Maxey really activates things for them. Like everyone loves Maxey and for good reason. But it's because he activates, and it's like, you know what Harden's going to do, you know what Embiid can do, but that there's something about that chemistry, that humming, that seeing that ball pop, and that's not the kind of roster and foundation they have with their stars and their team. So that's just something that I see as making Philly very vulnerable with those kind of stars.
The Warriors were old, with the exception of Poole. If you look at the main contributors,
but he
Curry,
didn't. But
Thompson,
he didn't say slow. He didn't say old. He didn't say old. He said slow. Like I think the difference between old and slow. That boy Curry been moving. That boy Curry.
Clay isn't that quick anymore. But offensively, I agree. We are pretty slow as a team. Defensively, I think like Thibault and Maxey are pretty quick and make up for it. So.
Yeah, but it's like your main players are slow.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't move the ball quick. They don't run quick. There's nothing about what to do in basketball is quick. Warriors are about quick action. Boom, pin down.
Yeah.
Quick basket, layup. Boom, three. Boom, Curry. Sprinting. It's a track meet, you know, and it's not like every championship team has to be a track meet, you know, but like if you're going to win slowing down, you're going to have to really master that because that's who they are.
And I don't think it's an insult. Like there are players who are Kevin Durant's a slow player. Luka Doncic's a slow player. Like these are slower players in the league who are still really good. Like I don't think that's an insult. I think that's just a style of play that they're gonna have to master if they want to like get good, as Martin said.
And I love the 1 point, like the ball movement. It's the end all be all for me in terms of is this team going to be better than years past? Because you're right. They're a very plotting team. And the only times that they have looked good, like, let me back up. Does PJ Tucker ever need to like touch the ball in a close game in the fourth quarter?
No, not on offense. Not on offense.
No,
nope, ever. Nope.
But he does need to touch the ball. Like to have an efficient offense, the ball needs to be moving around. So then instead of Joel getting it, pound the rock, it's whip around. Joel gets the ball. You look, and he's 3 feet from the basket because he's able to get good position because you got the defense moving. So like,
but the Bucks won a championship with PJ Tucker. Like him do it, and he did exactly what you're saying. Did not touch the ball. He stood in the corner and did nothing. And they won.
He's a good extra pass. He's good to great pass guy. He needs to touch the ball for that. Good to great pass. Get us great shot.
The Gretzky.
Good to great shot, I should say.
You know, PJ Gretzky
and Giannis were creating. The Bucks were creating better offense for someone like PJ Tucker in their offense than what I see Philly doing typically.
The Raptors weren't quick. No, I'm just thinking back.
Like Kawhi team.
Yeah, the Kawhi Raptors. Like Fred VanVleet was only quick.
They were horses. They were all Siakam, Kawhi.
They were dogs. They were dogs.
They're really good.
And they were efficient as all hell. They were efficient.
Of the fatal flaws, I think, of the Sixers, their speed is not one that I don't think of as a worry. Maybe I should, but I think of a lot of other things first.
I think it was in comparison to a lot, but we can move on to this last one because Martin, I know there's someone in particular in this list that you want to get to, but the fact that there are 11 players right now averaging over 30 points per game. We talked about one of them with Donovan Mitchell, but another one in particular, and this brother is doing something special right now to start the season. That's Ja Morant for the Grizzlies. I mean, my man's just tearing it up right now. So Martin, the floor is yours, man. Like what's like talk about him now. Talk about him now.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that, you know, Kevin Durant, the quote after their game, like he said that Ja's the most marketable guy in the league right now, and he's one of the future faces, like hands down. I just found that really interesting. Now, I'm not surprised because Ja gave them 38 and beat them when KD got 37 and Kyrie got 37. So he deserves that kind of praise and respect for KD, but from KD. But I think just watching Ja, like it's just fascinating to me. There's so many things to touch on, but I think the main thing when I was even watching that Brooklyn game, when I look at Ja, I don't know what's his weight. What is he listed as weight wise? Is he
174?
I was about to say can't be more than 170.
I was like, yeah, he's like I'm like, he's kind of like frail almost. Like he looks almost like fragile. Like he could.
It was
like,
one of the knocks.
really
It was
break
one of the
him.
knocks on draft day. It was honestly one of his knocks is that he was too skinny, too small.
But just like, and shout out to my guy, Master Yoda, Rashad Phillips, who is the number one Ja Morant supporter out there. Knew about him from day one, and sang his praises to the hills from day one. Just like Rashad would say early on in his evaluation, very much like Allen Iverson. Ja Morant, even at his size, I mean, obviously because of his athleticism, but he just jumps into people. Like he jumps into contact. Like and of course he can go over and around and do things because of his athleticism, but just physically, like he looks for that contact. And again, among many other things, I don't know. I think there's going to be a huge fight for face of the league, whatever that's going to mean in the next 5 to 10 years, just because there's so much talent. But clearly he's going to be a candidate. But the way he plays, the way he dominates at his size is ridiculous. And I feel like there's the way he does it, he impacts winning, and the way he does it, he almost has to win a championship one day. Like
like it's too. He plays with too much will. Like he plays with too much want to not get it. But I don't know. He plays with a magnitude. Like there's like a pull, a gravitational pull around what Ja Morant does in an NBA game. Like it's really hard to describe. But only I think inside of 10 players like can really say that in the NBA. Like they played with a aura and a magnitude around them, and Ja does that. Just please stay healthy, Ja. Like when he does jump into people, it's great. I love when he does it, but every time he lands, like every single time them knees at the floor, a part of like I wince heavy. Like
Not to throw a hot take and then dip out of the combo here, but like the fact I'm facing is this might be the next dynasty. Like if I'm picking a team to be make the playoffs the most in the next let's call it like 6 to 7 years. I don't know, a time frame where most players who are on their team now will still be on their team. Like they have young, really good and solid talent, guys who can play the game of basketball at an NBA level at playoff intensity, which is what they pride themselves on. Like, I mean, you know how I feel about Desmond Bane too, so we don't.
And you called that one. And here's the thing, like they have all players who excel great in their roles, and Ja is a star. Other stars are going to want to play with. Don't let that brother get something like a running mate. Like, don't let him get another superstar running mate because it's over. And I don't think that's far. Like, I don't think it's going to take much convincing if Ja call your phone one day and you're a free agent and he says, hey, big bro, let's go do this thing. Like, I want to go all the swag Memphis plays with, all the stars that Ja brings out, the great vibes, the good nature, like the brother plays with. Why would I not want to go play with somebody like that? And you saw them old grandmas yelling to KD, come to Memphis, baby, and and that brother was grinning ear to ear, ear to ear. Like they are so close. They almost got him. He almost went to the sideline and was like, "Yeah, I got to switch to that." Oh, and you know that Martin. Now you know that old black lady. That you know that baby hit.
It was getting that barbecue ready, boy.
I'm about to say that come to Memphis, baby, came with a side of cornbread. Like that just felt like home when they said that, yo. So I do think that it's not far away for Ja to get a running mate. And then Jake, that dynasty you talk about is there. But Matt, go ahead.
No, you're fine. The Grizzlies lost in 6 games to the champions without this man. They think they should have won the title. That's their mindset. And that's the mindset of every young team that eventually becomes the team to beat.
Boston was that team that almost beat LeBron, right? Boston was that team.
And they have the perfect mentality. And the only thing they need so far, really only like Golden State hates them, they need to draw like, not like a beef, but like something needs to happen like a regular season game against like a Denver or a Dallas where like someone like kind of like trash talks Luka, and then like they need more like, we're the team that's gonna make everyone like lives miserable because we're gonna beat them to nothing. And like I'm just gonna refrain. I'm rooting for that from an entertainment perspective because I think that'd be really fun.
I mean, we got it.
But they have that. They have that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're on the verge of being almost like there. I don't want to say like the Warriors because that's a really hard thing to live up to, but like the 2014-ish Warriors kind of vibe, where like you can feel it coming. It's just kind of a matter of when.
Yeah, and to your point, they got that beef brewing. For all you know, that regular season game you talk about is Christmas Day in San Francisco against those Golden State Warriors. A game that Jock literally spoke into existence, like used his power to say, I want to go to Golden State on Christmas. And the NBA was like, all right. Okay. Like,
no,
you got it. Yeah, you got it. So Ja gets now a chance to play that team who he didn't really get to play in the playoffs. Like, and all the Draymond stuff is underlying, all the Clay stuff is underlying that could happen on Christmas. And that's must see TV right there. But that brother Ja is absolutely special.
Yeah, the Warriors have a tough. It's crazy because Ja is exactly the kind of player that the Warriors have a hard time with. He goes at them, and there's no, again, I said before, like LeBron, we saw LeBron like cripple the Warriors. We only saw a few like individual talents really take them down, and really just like they were just too much for even the Warriors at their best. LeBron, Kawhi, we've only seen a handful do it. And Ja has given them those kind of problems where it's like, we might win, but we can't stop him. Like, we can't stop him from doing what he does. And that's very scary.
Look, when he wants to, he gonna get it. The definition of get to yours is what Ja does. But all right, we're gonna move on to the second segment. We always do this one with a guest, y'all. Speaking facts, we're bringing it back. Martin, you did this last time. It's always a great segment. It's gonna be a quick speaking facts this time. I only got 2 for you, but again, we got some quotes out there in the NBA landscape this time, and we got to address them. So the first one is ESPN writer Kirk Goldsberry, and he says, and I don't know how much he was exaggerating, but he says, and I quote, the Lakers might have the worst shooting team in NBA history. And whether he's modern, whether he's exaggerating or not,
I got some stats quickly from his article about it.
I was like, I thought
he hear the brother.
About that.
Right. So
it was an article.
2014-15, the 76ers, that's one of our tanking years, shot 30.9% on jump shots. So far this year, the Lakers that was the worst in the last 25 years. This year, the Lakers are 23% so far.
4 games.
Oh, they're not even in the 30s.
That's kind of crazy. To be fair, though, like, are we not taking this Lakers team over like the 1908, like whatever, when they didn't have a 3-point? Like, come on, Kirk.
1908.
You know what I'm saying? There are worse teams out there shooting the basketball.
The truth is, it's probably the other way around, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Back then, all they did was shoot and dribble and pass.
Yeah,
right.
I was about to ask you, Jake, how well did that 1908 team play defense? Because I'm about to take the 1908 team. I'm real close.
If we're saying 19 players of 1908 are better shooters than LeBron James, then we have a serious
reminder that NBA started in 1946.
Yeah, it's no, Matt. This is 19. We're talking 1908.
I'm talking about with the baskets in the parking lot. That's what I'm talking about.
So get rid of that 1908 stuff.
Baskets and they have to get
Look,
some guys.
That's what I'm talking. I'm
They
talking about
gotta-
the peach baskets in the parking lot. That's the game. I might take that team right now. I
Pull
might
Jerry
take
West
them
out
right
to
now.
25 feet back in the day, and let me see how well he.
Oh, you picked the
he-
wrong guy.
That's
Yeah,
good.
not Jerry.
There's
So,
a lot.
okay, so-
you know, you gotta look.
Bob
There's clips
Cousy.
of Dolph Shays' jump shot. It's ugly. It's like
Oh,
Oh my God.
we don't
it's
have
like
to spend too
Sean
much
Marion
time.
looks pretty. It's like
No. We don't have to spend too much time convincing anybody out there that basketball now was better than basketball back then. We get that, but where Cliff is coming from is these are historically dark times for a team that has names on a paper like Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook. Like we're watching, and you guys said it last year. We're watching a collapse. Like it's historically bad, and you guys said that last year, and I was like, like let's pump the brakes, and it never got better. Like it only actually continued, in fact, Jake, to get much, much worse. So like, yes, we're at the point where it's like a historic collapse. And I think the thing that I'm noticing, like it never was to me the coach. Like Frank Vogel has a lot of respect to me as a coach in the NBA. A championship winning coach with LeBron James, a guy who spent many years taking LeBron James to 7 games. And if it was any other player but LeBron James, probably beats him on multiple occasions with his team. And you want to scapegoat him for a guy and whatever Russ is going through, we have defenders, whatever. But for a guy, Russell Westbrook, who literally is just hurting the Lakers right now. So like that, like I hear the historically bad comparisons because that's what it looks like right now. Like we will be talking about how bad this semblance of the Lakers is for years. We will tell our grandkids about it. And that's what makes it historic. It's like when they talk about, oh, grandpa, man, LeBron was great. Like we gonna have to be like, yeah, but he had them 2-3 years in LA that I can't really explain, son. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's bruh.
It's what I will say is it's very, I know that Russ has gotten a lot of heat, especially like this show included, but like very sad to see the development and then ultimately like the media response to him now. He is still an all-time great point guard, like in my opinion. So like it is upsetting, but it is on the same hand crazy that they went with Russell Westbrook and his 40 M's a year over Buddy Hield and who is it, like Harrison Barnes for Kyle Kuzma? If we were to run that back, I think they would do that trade over the Russ trade, obviously now. But
not fire Frank Vogel and not fire Frank Vogel. Love that Darvin Ham got an opportunity, but I think firing Frank Vogel it was just taking a step to the side. I didn't do anything. Like I don't think that it did.
Ron just didn't like him anymore, dude. It was just,
I guess when you look at a team, you're like something's got to change. And it's easier to fire Frank Vogel than it is to move $40 million on Russell Westbrook's head. It's just easier to do. and something got to change. But all right, the second one we'll go to is Stephen A. Smith. And what do we say, y'all? 20,000 takes a year? We got to get him in. Got to get him in. He finds himself again on Speaking Facts. And this time it's about the other most polarizing team in the NBA, the Eastern Conference version of the Lakers sometimes. It is the Brooklyn Nets. And he said Steve Nash will not last till the end of the season in Brooklyn. So Martin, is he speaking facts? Is it time to go for Steve Nash? Is it come to roost?
I think that would be the smart thing to do, especially considering that KD is already off him. When I watch games recently, I've noted like they literally do not respond to him. Like, I mean, Steve Nash probably is best as just like what he was with the Warriors. I mean, as a head coach, I just don't think it's really doing it. I don't know if they're gonna. It would have to get really bad for them to do that. So I don't know. I think it would have to get pretty bad for them to do that because they stuck with their guns with Steve Nash, Joe Tsai, and Sean Martin. I mean, he chose them over, trading KD. So like they stuck to that. And I don't know if they're just going to tank that, unless things get really bad. So I'm not sure on that. If I had to guess, I would say he makes it through the year. Maybe after the season, I could see them letting him go.
And I don't know whether Stephen A. is speaking facts or not. I would think you're more right. He makes it to the end of the year. But from the standpoint of like, I could see why they would choose Steve Nash is because like Katie and Kyrie could up and decide to leave as soon as things get hard. So why would we like continue to just obey their wish when at some point like they could get fed up and decide they want to leave, which they've already done. It just, the cards didn't shake out for them to leave, right? They already decided that they wanted to leave publicly. It just didn't make sense for both parties for them to part ways. So why would, like, yeah, my loyalty is probably going to go to Steve Nash when I already know you're a flight risk if things get hard again. Like, we're not past any sign of trade deadline.
Yeah, but why? What has Steve Nash proven in his career to give him
as a head coach? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So like, there's nothing.
I think, but like, he's Steve Nash. He's not a no-name person. He's Steve Nash.
Steve Nash. Jason Kidd was a bad coach too in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn
Milwaukee.
and Milwaukee. Milwaukee and Brooklyn.
In both of them.
And so like he's turned around a bit in Dallas, but like sometimes you get fired quick when you're bad. Doesn't matter what your name is.
I think ultimately a lot of the things we discussed with Ben Simmons are going to come back and be tagged to Steve Nash, fair or not, like the lineup stuff, the Ben Simmons underperforming stuff. People are going to say, why aren't you playing Cam Thomas more? The real answer is because he would get victimized on defense, but they just want Ben Simmons to be out there with one less big. It's like he is now put into the Brett Brown hell. Congratulations, buddy. You are now you are in a no-win situation. If they win, it's because of the players. If they lose, it's because of you.
But to me, I feel like Steve Nash should have a better chance at coaching Ben Simmons than KD or Kyrie. Like that could go. Oh, that could go well. It could go bad, but I feel like he might have a better chance at trying to influence. And I agree with Jake. The Ben Simmons experiment and how he does, I could definitely see that reflecting back on Steve Nash. I mean, anything with the team comes back on the head coach, but like Ben Simmons specifically, because he's their point guard. He can do things in a way that I think Steve Nash appreciates, just the unselfish pass first nature. I don't know if he's trying to, but I think he should be trying to like connect with him and say, hey, like, I trust you to kind of run this team. Let me show you some things. Let me, great passers should be able to connect and talk about IQ things and how do we do certain things offensively. So I think he should be trying to, if he can be the one to kind of turn Ben Simmons around or like make him look better or something, I mean, that could save his job.
Shoot, Steve Nash won 2 MVPs being a pass first point guard. Shoot, you know what I mean? Like
he could also shoot that thing, and he could also
which is something they may not connect on too often.
They won't be shooting together. That would
no. They may have to stick to the passing drills, but we're almost out of time for this episode of Straight Facts. It was a great one. We always enjoy having Martin Soaries of Basketball Society on, but we can get some shots up at the buzzer as we always do. Martin, you got 60 seconds for the floor, man. Got something to say at the buzzer?
I'll say what I guess I always say when I have a little time to say something. Think about breathing through your nose more throughout the day. Just take time to close your mouth. Take some good, clean, slow, controlled breaths into your nose, focusing on the cold air, and then out through the nose, focusing on the warm air. Do that for a few minutes and get back to me after. So that's what I got.
I'm going to implement that.
He might have just unlocked like a new department of my brain that I've never, like, that's,
I was low-key doing it when he was saying it. It felt good.
It felt good for them 10 seconds. Yeah. Try to do that. Amplify that by a couple of minutes. You might solve solve world hunger or something. That sounds amazing. But Jake or Matt, you got something to say at the buzzer?
Really quick. So like, obviously we've been doing this podcast for a while, right? I work in the podcast industry. I think I know podcasting pretty well. And, it's a tough gig, can be. Definitely tough to build it up. So my girlfriend and her friend started doing a Taylor Swift podcast. I'm like, great, that's awesome. I'll do a little bit of cutting for you. That's all. I'll cut up the clips here. She comes back home one day and says, oh, hun, like we did really well on TikTok. I'm like, oh, did you get a couple thousand? She turns her phone around. She had a video with 1.5 million views. I was like, all right, so do you want to like just work for me? And like,
can she get it over here?
Like,
can she get over here?
Her Taylor Swift TikTok account with a friend like blew up. They got a whole bunch of videos. Girls at Home 13 is their handle on TikTok. If you like Taylor
Tell
Swift,
her to promote us.
Share a clip. Can she remix a clip or something?
Right.
I'll do a dance. Like, do
collab.
we got to do it? Do we got to do a little TikTok
No,
dance?
we gotta
Do
go
like
like breaking down the NFL teams as if they're Taylor Swift.
Taylor
albums.
Swift songs? Yep.
You got it. You guys got it already. You
Matt, Jake,
yeah,
she's the next.
that
She's
sounds
the,
really good, actually.
she's the next.
I would enjoy
Actually, Martin, no, actually, it actually sounds like a brilliant segment. And to be honest,
I gotta do some Spotify and give me like
was
5
great.
hours. That's how long
it was so good that if you would have said that last week, Martin might not have been the guest this week. Jake's girlfriend might have been in that fourth panel because that's gold right there. But I have learned that TikTok, the algorithm to blow up is so much different than Instagram. Like 20,000 views on Instagram is going viral a little bit. 20,000 views on TikTok, low light. Like you can get, you know what I mean? You can get 20,000. That's how easily consumable the content is. And it's, everyone says I'm crazy for not being on it. So that might have been the you know what I mean, that's what'll get me over joining Sarah's TikTok. You know what I mean? I'm gonna blow up that way. Matt, you got something to say at the buzzer real quick?
I just want to remind everyone before this World Series how much of scum the Houston Astros were.
Yeah.
The most
Speak it.
despicable
Yeah.
on-field team in American sports since 2000, and it's not close. Everyone talks about how they cheated to win the World Series and it's illegitimate and fraudulent, and everyone should always point that out, and that's 100% true. But we also need to talk about the fact that, one, Yuri Gurriel's still on this team, and the fact that not only did in Game 3 of the 2017 World Series he had a home run off Yu Darvish that they cheated to do, and then lied about he was tipping pitches, which screwed up Darvish's Game 7 start because he was in his head about tipping pitches, which he wasn't. He then did the racist slant eyes to him after he cheated to hit a home run off him, and he does not get nearly enough despicable hate for that. And I want the boos in Philadelphia to be on Game 3 for it's Altuve, Bregman, Gurriel, Verlander won't be pitching then, but there's a lot that aren't there anymore, obviously. But those key
and they're big enough names
guys,
to remember.
It's a disgrace, and they're chokers. All they do is choke in the playoffs when they can't cheat. They've never won. They've been huge favorites against the Nationals, against the Braves. They're big favorites against us. Let's cement them as the biggest chokers in modern baseball history.
I mean,
the NL East can't win without shooting.
The NL East goes on a run when we meet the Astros. So I don't want to be the team to stop that, right?
And as far as the booing goes, Matt, Mother Teresa could climb into that batter's box in Philadelphia, and she is getting booed out of the building if it's the World Series.
Also, Dusty Baker did not invent the high five. I don't know why it's no knowledge that he invented the high five in 1977. I got in a thing with my brother about this, and we took 2 hours freaking out. They're like, no, so high five.
There has been a lot of years.
And it took a long time for us to find it, but there's a French movie in 1960 it shows a high five.
There's a lot of years and a lot of people who've lived on the planet. Dusty Baker cannot be the person who invented
Google it. It's
the
known fact that Dusty Baker invented the high five.
I absolutely cannot get down with that. But all I gotta say at the buzzer is, y'all, I know we didn't talk about the NFL this week, but I can't let this sit for another week. I have to pop my cash stuff right now. The Jets are 5-2.
He's finally
yeah. It's time to puff my chest out about it. The Jets are 5-2. And Martin, for reference, they laughed at me, bro. They did. Not Jake and Matt specifically.
They didn't believe in you?
They didn't believe in me.
They didn't believe.
The Jets did. Sauce did. I didn't proclaim anything big. I said after the Jets had one of the best drafts in the NFL, a back-to-back off seasons of good moves, cementing pieces, that the Jets were building something. That was my statement. I said, they go out and get Jordan Whitehead, one of the best box safeties in the league. Wow. They have back-to-back drafts that go Quentin Williams, Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, these studs. And I'm like, wow, the Jets are building something. And everybody out there listening to the podcast, well, Jim, I don't know. You missed one there on the Jets. I can't get behind the Jets. This, that, and third. And the Jets are just going to all your favorite football team stadiums and knocking y'all down. And they going out to London and knocking, like, they doing it everywhere. So the Jets are 5-2. That's all I got to say.
Without their top 5 offensive tackles on the team have been injured, and they've done it. And they've done it in spite of Zach Wilson being their quarterback. That's the craziest part to me, as we all know.
As you know.
But
I'll leave you to the Zach Wilson point. The Jets are 5-2. When I say something, I mean it. Okay? Like, when I say something, I mean it. That's all I got to leave it at. But that's the time that we have for this episode of Straight Facts. Again, it was a great one. Shout out to everybody and Up On Game Presents Network, LeVar Arrington, Plexico Burris, TJ Husmanzada, and everyone. Make sure you're following them wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, the whole shebang. Also, make sure you're following Basketball Society on all social media pages, and my guy Martin Soaries, the basketball guru, they call him. He came by Straight Facts and dropped all the facts by. And also, of course, shout out to my guys Jake Galley and Statman Robinson. I'm James Jackson. These have been the facts.
Straight up.